And it's my honor to introduce our next session, our panel. We have a talented group of individuals here that it's my honor to introduce. Elon Musk said, great companies are built by the right people. These individuals certainly embody that and have done great things in their respective organizations. The title of this panel is Chess versus Checkers, Winning the People Strategy Game. It's going to be led by Tina Carfaro-Breen. She's the VP of Sales and Marketing for Manufacturers Reserve Supply in New Jersey. She is also a newly minted master's degree holder in psychology from Purdue. Congratulations, Tina. We also have Mr. Dana Cowart, who is the VP of Technology and Acquisition for Tao Building Centers in the beautiful Pacific Northwest. Dana comes to us with years of sales and operations experience, and now he's leading their organization in the technology aspect, so a big job. We have Lindsey DiGangi, who is the Associate Vice President of Marketing for Pennsylvania Lumbermens Insurance Company, and they are also a sponsor of Women of LBM, and we are so grateful to them, and Lindsey does a phenomenal job for this company, and we appreciate her participation today. Then last but not least, we have Amber Little, who is the CHRO of Nation's Best, based out of Texas. I'll give a shout out to Amber. She just had the vision and foresight a year ago to begin her own women's leadership development initiative, and they just completed their second session. It was more or less a boot camp. I was privileged enough to go and speak at their inaugural session, but just wanted to give a shout out to Amber for having the vision and the foresight to lead that initiative within Nation's Best. So without further ado, we'll welcome everyone to the stage.
So Dina did a great job introducing all of us already, but I'm going to delve into that a little bit further. The name of our panel, or the title of our panel is Chess versus Checkers, Winning at the People Leadership Game. And I want to spend a second telling you a little bit about what you're going to learn in our panel this morning, hopefully. So we're going to talk about the people strategy game, right? So people is the human capital in your business, and we're going to talk about proven strategies and real-life examples to help you leverage your most valuable asset at work, and that's your people. We're going to talk a lot about psychology in the workplace. So psychology is the study of people and why they do what they do. So why aren't we figuring that out in the workplace to help build bigger, better, and stronger organizations? We will probably wind up hitting a little bit of DE&I through our conversations. What is it really? Because I think there's a lot of misperceptions about what DE&I is and what is it not. And if you are using some of these strategies to maximize your human capital, you're definitely going to be better at playing chess when your competitors are still playing checkers. So let's start with Dana. Why don't you tell us a little bit about why you were interested in being on this panel today?
Yeah, thank you. Hopefully I'm working. Sorry about the delay too. Yeah, I mean, working for Tao Building Centers, this type of activity is critical for what we do. A big part of our business model is acquisitions, right? And so it's critical we understand how to motivate and how to galvanize a group of individuals who come from a very disparate and diverse background of legacy cultures, right? Each one of those acquisitions has its own history, has its own legacy culture, what matters to them, and what motivates them. And our job is to try to understand that, and then how do you coalesce that into a singular purpose, right? A singular cause for the organization. What does it mean to be part of Tao Building Centers? So it's very near and dear to us and what we do in our success.
Amber, why don't you tell us a little bit about what drew you to this panel today?
Well, I think it's very similar to TAL, is that Nation's Best also grows by acquisition. So when I started in October of 2020, which was a wonderful time to start in the middle of a pandemic, we had just onboarded our 12th store, and we just onboarded October 1st, 61, 62, and 63. So we have been in super growth mode, and just like you, trying to adapt those cultures into our culture. It's difficult, but it's exciting. And I think the other thing that kind of drew me to this is I am all about diversity as well, and being in a male-dominated industry, for me, it's very exciting because we have 35% of our store managers are women, which is awesome, I think, in this industry. And so we've been working really hard to make that happen. And like Dina said, a couple years ago, we started this women's retreat, which has been kind of my passion. And so I think that's kind of what really drew me to this.
I'm glad you're here. Lindsey?
Thanks. So Pennsylvania Lumbermens has been around for almost 130 years, much like your businesses. And just like your businesses, we're seeing a lot of change in the insurance industry and just in our company too. We have people that have been there for over 50 years down to the person that started on Monday. So for us, we're looking at, okay, what does that look like in the future? And as the company continues to change and we start putting new people in leadership, how do we continue to develop our culture as an organization? And personally, I've been with the company since I started as an intern 11 years ago, and I've had a lot of opportunity to move within the organization, work with a lot of different, in a lot of different departments and with cross-functional teams as well. So I'm passionate about our people and continuing to learn how we can improve as a company.
Thanks. And I'm Tina Breen. I'm the president. Oh, maybe I just foreshadowed some of that. Don't tell my boss. I'm the vice president of sales and marketing for Manufacturers Reserve Supply. We're a two-step distributor out of New Jersey. And I think I'm here at this panel because Thea begged me. Nobody else would do it. No, I'm just kidding. But because of my recent education in industrial and organizational psychology, I've really spent a lot of time in the past 4 years studying people. I'm not a psychologist. I am not a clinician, but I understand how to use psychological principles in the workplace to understand people and how to leverage that. So I think that was kind of a nice fit for me. Yeah. All right, you ready to get into it?
Of course.
Okay.
Good.
So the way that we set this panel up is I've got some questions, and then I'm just going to kind of throw them to our panel, and we'll have a discussion. I do have some time reserved at the end for Q&A, which I'm really hoping that we get some questions. It's kind of our measurement if you guys were engaged. So please start thinking of some questions. But if something's really burning and you really want to ask it now, just raise your hand and we'll bring you into the conversation. Okay. So the importance of personality may be one of my favorite things. I spend a lot of time studying personality and how you can leverage that in the workplace. So my first question is for Amber. How important is it for leaders to understand their own personality and the personalities of their team members? And can you share examples of how this understanding has driven success in your workplace?
Sure. So first of all, I think self-awareness in general is super important to be effective as a leader. But knowing your personality, so knowing it affects your leadership style, it affects your decision making, it affects how you communicate, how you collaborate. But knowing your strengths and your blind spots, it's super important in how you interact with your direct reports or your team members, or really anybody in general, right? But if you know that also about your team members and your direct reports, so you're going to know more about their work styles, you're going to know about how they want to collaborate, how they want to communicate, and how better to really resolve conflict with them, it's really just going to be a better workplace in general, right? And you're going to be able to determine what kind of environment you can shape for them. So for example, if you have an employee who really needs a lot of structure in their environment, they need very strict deadlines, they need to know, kind of have you hover over them and check in with them all the time. you know that that's what you need to provide them. Or maybe you have an employee on the flip side that if you did that, that would drive them absolutely crazy, right? They need kind of that more autonomous environment, or they need the freedom to be creative. So you kind of need to know that. If you know that about them, you know that about their personality, you can, create an environment where, they can foster and really be more productive and feel more engaged and more valued. Same thing with recognition. I think we kind of tend to want to recognize and do the same way we want to be recognized, right? So we may say, I want to be on the stage, and everybody say, yay, me, but not everybody wants the same thing. And so you may do that for somebody, and they're like, that shuts them down completely, right? Now they're demotivated, they would never want to do that again. And so sometimes if you know that about somebody's personality, that going up on a stage and saying, hey, they did an amazing job in front of 200 people is going to really demotivate them. Maybe they need a more personal approach, maybe just a pat on the back, a thank you note. They're going to feel more valued and supported that you knew exactly what they wanted. So I think it's very important in the workplace for you to know that. Just like, you would not treat your kids the same, right? If you do the same thing for kid 2 discipline-wise that you did kid 1, you're probably not always going to be successful. So I think it's important for you to know your strengths and how you can work with your teammates as well.
So a follow-up question before I go to Lindsey, how do you handle someone who's not self-aware? I mean, self-awareness is super important. But I feel like if you're working with someone who's not self-aware and they're not going to get there, how do you start to bring someone into understanding some things about themselves that are affecting the team?
Well, I think it's a lot of feedback, right? But I think assessments is the first place to start. We use assessments in our workplace. We use the predictive index is one that we utilize, but there are a lot of them out there that are really effective and really useful in the workplace to try to get some self-awareness for individuals.
Lindsey, you use some assessments too, right?
We do, yeah. So we use Caliper mainly, and we use that both in our new hires, and we went through an effort to do Caliper testing on all of our employees as well. And they have a lot of outputs, as not just how you present yourself, but how you show up in different types of team situations too. So we've actually done full sessions at our internal national meeting where we showed everyone kind of where they fell on a team scale, and had someone come in from Caliper to talk about that and help people understand that a little bit more.
You use it as a hiring tool or after they're already there?
We use it as a hiring tool, so it's part of the hiring process. It, of course, is not the end-all, be-all. It really is just a tool. And I think it's important to know that no assessment is going to give your full personality or any person's personality, so it's just an opportunity to ask more questions. And I've had a success story with that person, or with one of my team members. In the Caliper, she showed up on the scale for flexibility at a 1. This is a scale of 1 to 100. So we're talking someone that likes structure, likes rules, and doesn't understand when people don't follow the rules, because that's just what you do. And that's great for someone who is responsible for data and the integrity of data. It is not great when that person's also responsible for training others and trying to get buy-in from other departments. And so with her, that level of self-awareness it's critical, and it's important that it's not just us as leaders learning about our people, but our people learning about themselves, because we've had a dialogue going for 4 or 5 years now where she recognized that, you're right, I do jump to say, no, that won't work, or I don't trust that person or this thing to happen. And now, instead of that initial no, she's able to question that herself and really find ways to get that buy-in from other people. And that's all because of that self-awareness that started with just a basic assessment.
Thank you. Dana, what are the key characteristics of people-centric workplaces, and how do these environments contribute to a company's ability to win the strategy game?
Yeah, so I think almost everybody in this room, if asked, what's the most important asset in your business, right? I think all of us would probably respond with, it's our people, right? We have the best people, and it's our people that make us successful. So I think having a people-centric workplace is really about putting your money where your mouth is, so to speak, right? And as a leader, it's about understanding what the employee needs to perform at their best, and then providing them the tools, the resources, and from my opinion, the most important component is the empowerment to act and perform at their best. I think the empowerment part is a critical aspect of a people-centric workplace. Also, I think it's understated, but showing compassion and empathy and being a caring leader, I think is huge, right? I think that is absolutely one of the most important parts of it. If your employees see that you care, they tend to be more invested in what's going on. That's been my experience, and I think that's a huge part of having this employee-centric workplace. And then so if they see you care and they feel a sense of empowerment and they feel like they've got the resources they need that you're providing them, I think they get more invested in the business as well. So
employee-centric workplace, that's kind of a HR buzzword these days. And to me, it means putting the people before putting the people before your profits.
Correct. Yep.
Is that how you understand it too?
Absolutely. I use my team that we have to care for their well-being as people more than we care for the outputs, right? And the output will come absolutely if they feel valued, and we don't want to create workplaces where they wake up every morning and dread coming to work, right? And probably lots of people in this room have had those jobs before, and you're demotivated, you're not invested in what's going on, and all you can think about is, man, I just wish my shift was over, right? How do we create an environment that people want to come to, right? We spend more time at work than we do with our own families, right? So how do we make that a welcoming environment, one that they want to come to, want to be productive in? So absolutely.
Do you have somebody at your company who owns that initiative?
I think it starts right at the top with Jason Blair, our CEO. He's been instrumental in us really embracing as a leadership team, focus on the employees, right? And I think we have an awesome executive team, right? The next step down from Jason. I think all of us share that value, to our core about how do we succeed through empowerment, through caring, through the empathy, and providing an outstanding work environment. It's up to us to be stewards of our employees' time, and I think that responsibility can't be understated. So.
And I would implore some of you who are like, yeah, I know I really need to work on the people, but that's not my passion. That's not, my area of expertise. I'm a numbers person, or I'm a more structured person. Then delegate someone at your company to focus on that. If you're the CEO, if you're the president, and you don't want to do it, like you said at your companies from the top down, if the top person is like, I know this is important in my head strategically, but this is just not my jam, find someone at your company who can own that. It is super important, especially considering that for the first time we have 5 generations in our workforce. Now, the oldest generation, which I didn't know until recently, is called the greatest generation. And they are 100 years old or more. So there's a couple of those still floating around in our workforce. But every generation has a different value set. They value things differently. And you have to accommodate your business to what their values are, or you're not going to attract top talent. My favorite example is the millennials. So sometimes like the boomers or the silent generation, and even a little bit of Generation X, which is kind of where I fall a little bit, they'll say, oh, the millennials, they're lazy, right? They're lazy,
ruined
they
everything.
don't want to work.
The millennials, we ruined everything.
Yeah, you ruined everything. But I have come to learn that that's not at all true. They have different value sets than what some of their older generations have, or what some of the older generations have. They value work-life balance. Mm-hmm. Me and my parents, we worked all the time. It was all about work. You know, dad came home late, or he was away on business trips all the time, or, you know, and you're just trying to climb that corporate ladder. Millennials and younger, they still want to contribute. They want to be valued. They want, you know, the big jobs, and they want to be paid properly. But they want to shut their phones off at 6 o'clock, you know, or 6:30. And they want to play with the kids and go out to dinner. They don't want to be tied to work 24/7. So for me, it's just a change in their values. Have you guys had any experience with that, and how have you adapted to the different value sets that the incoming generations have?
I think it definitely shifted after the pandemic too. So I think even the generation before millennials, I think now are wanting a little more work-life balance. And maybe just even flexibility. So, you know, you see a lot that wanted to work at home, and when you're in retail, that gets a little bit tricky, right? You can't let, you know, everybody work at home. But I think the work-life balance doesn't necessarily have to be working at home. It could just be more flexible in the scheduling, right? So they want to be able to, you know, take a little bit of time to take their child to the doctor, or be able to go to a parent-teacher conference, or whatever it is. That's the value that they're wanting. That's the care that they're wanting their employer to show them, right? But I think it's also, they're valuing a lot of, what I'm seeing is they're valuing a lot of more wellness programs and things like that. So they're wanting to see mental health programs and EAPs and things like that, because the pandemic took a toll on all of that, and they're still recovering. So,
and then when you're recruiting, you should be advertising some of those things, that, you know, that you offer healthcare programs or mental health programs, and because those are key recruiting words, impact words, buzzwords that are going to attract the talent that you're looking for.
I'd say that's also a great retention tool too. It's not just recruiting. You have to be able to keep selling and talking about the things that you are doing. I think about that with our company. If we polled 5 people to talk about their full benefit package, what would they actually talk about? And how much of it are they actually taking advantage of? And I think there's always an opportunity to kind of repackage, remarket what you are doing for your current employees too.
yeah, they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
All right, so challenges and solutions. Lindsey, what are some of the common challenges companies face when trying to implement the people-centric strategies, and how can they overcome them?
We talked a little bit about buy-in and how it starts at the top. I do still think that's probably one of the largest challenges, though, and it's not necessarily you. You could have the most passionate leader in the company or person that's trying to advocate for these, but you have to have all of the right people on board too. So Dana, you talked about your leadership team, but then I think about what's the next level down, the people that are relaying the information every day, advocating for employees. That I think is a big area where there's challenges, and then there's also the follow through, and it's related. And so if you don't have the buy-in, you're not going to have uniform follow through. It just won't happen. And I think that's where you put the money where your mouth is, and where results actually happen.
I think the follow through is critical.
Yeah.
I think that's where I've seen a lot of companies, stumble with this is they might talk the talk, but they don't necessarily walk the walk. And it's critical you build a trust with your employee base that you're going to do what you say you do, right? And it's interesting. We've for a couple of years now done an employee survey, an engagement survey, and out of that, we ask for feedback up, and then suggestions on things that we should do as an enterprise, as a company, to improve our workplace environment. And Jason, once again, start with Jason. He said, "Hey guys, we have to take action on this stuff. We can't just ignore it." And we did. We took all the suggestions. We gave feedback down. We picked 2 of them as a leadership team that we were going to turn into company-wide initiatives. And we were public about it. We're like, "Hey, you guys said this needs to change. Here's what we're going to do to address it." And I cannot tell you how many comments we got about like, man, I've worked for so many places who do this and we never hear anything.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, they ask for our opinion and then we give it and nothing happens. Right? It goes off into the black void and gets stuck in a binder and put on a shelf and nobody ever sees it again. Yep. And we were told like, thank you for actually listening and then following through and doing something about it. And I think that was instrumental for us a couple years ago in really building up that foundational trust with the employee base to say, hey, we're listening, we want the feedback, and we're gonna put our money where our mouth is, so to speak. So I think that right there is a key stumbling block that I think a lot of companies fall into, and it's critical that you keep yourselves from falling into that pitfall.
Related to that is kind of the idea of transparency too. I think that's a big problem. So talking about you solicit feedback and we do the same thing, but how many conversations do you have kind of behind the doors, and what they see is just one piece of what all the feedback that they provided. So I think a lot of the obstacles that you come against in implementing these strategies can be resolved just with better and more consistent and more transparent communication, and that happens at all levels and has to happen all the time too.
I think it's evolving. The key thing is involving the employees in the process also. No matter what you can do from a culture standpoint, yeah, usually you have a person at the top that's kind of the champion, driver of the culture, but I think the culture really needs to be a ground up, hey, what are the employees' wants from a place that they go to work in? And like I said, getting the feedback, that for us as an organization, that feedback loop is hugely powerful for us, but involving them, that's, to me, it's those surveys are great things to do, is get them to open up about what it is that they want to see. And once again, it's our responsibility as their employers to prove that we're a good place for them to go work for. So.
And it doesn't mean that we can do everything that everyone wants us to do either, but I think, involving people in the process and communicating, they understand more of like what goes into those ideas and those thoughts and the execution, and I think there's a much more compassion and willingness to compromise when you do have that dialogue.
The overarching thing that I'm hearing from you guys is that you need a strategy. It's like writing a business plan. If you're going to grow a certain part of your business, you need to sit down and put together a plan. I don't want everyone to leave here and go, oh yeah, it's a good idea to do a culture survey and then we'll see what the people think. That's just not it. You have to sit and think about a strategy of how, do I want to create an employee-centric workplace? I hope the answer is yes. And then how are we going to do it? And then you need to have strategic plans and what are the intentions and the outcomes and what are you trying to do, and doing a culture survey is only one of those pieces, and making sure you communicate back to the employees only one of those pieces, but you need to really put together a strategy and own it. Okay, let's see what our next question is. Dana, what are some of the key values that define today's workforce, and how can businesses effectively align with these values to attract the top talent?
Yeah, values, that's like a 2-hour-long conversation of itself. But, I think what we're finding more and more is employees want to know your company stands for something more than just profits, right? And this kind of goes back to this generational shift, right? Like, it used to be, hey, that was what the important thing was, and that's what the employees expected of you, to be a profitable organization so you could return back to them some compensation as a reward of that. But now it's more intrinsic. What are the things beyond the profits that you stand for as an organization? And so I think it's important really to know what it is for your company and be able to define it, and not just put it on a piece of paper and hide behind it, but like be public about it, be transparent. Use that word. I think one of the most powerful things we did as an organization was number of years ago, 6, 7 years ago, in our infancy of our acquisition growth, we didn't have a well-defined core values, and mission statement. And I asked our former CEO, I said, hey, what does it mean to be part of the Tao family of companies? And we actually couldn't answer that, which was scary to me. I was inspired actually after visiting the Do It Best headquarters, that they had up on the wall their mission statement, value statements, and some core values. It was succinct, it was easy to read, it was easy to understand, and the employees knew what it meant to be part of Do It Best. So I came back and led this mission to say, hey, we need to redefine what it means to be part of Tao. So part of that is we put out a survey to the employees and say, hey, what are the things that are important to you guys? What matters to you guys? What are we good at? What are we not good at? And we got a ton of feedback on that, and then we locked ourselves in a room for about 3 or 4 days and came up with our current mission statements, which is we help build better communities, right? And we have a set of core values out of that. And then we were very public about making that employee-facing, customer-facing, but it gave us this common thread that said, hey, nowhere up on that core values is to say we are profitable, we are, sales records, none of that. That gave us a common language to have difficult conversations. It gave us a lens through which we can make tough decisions. But it was about getting that feedback from the employees to say, what are the values that matter to you guys? And then us defining that and using that as an anchor for us on a go-forward basis. So.
Was that anonymous?
The survey was. Yeah. There was. And, one of the things that the employees said, one of the things we were terrible at was safety. We were like, we could talk on safety, but we didn't walk the walk. And so we made that one of our core values to say we're going to be safe.
Did anywhere in that survey come out that they want to, I'm going to call it, have purpose at work? Mm-hmm. Like feel rewarded for the work that they're doing, that they contribute to a greater purpose?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where the mission statement for us came from, that we help build better communities, right? What is the why? Why are we doing what we do, right? And for us, it was a little bit of play on words, right? We're helping physically build better communities through the products we sell. We're trying to build a better community of employees and be good stewards of their time. We're trying to help build a better community of customers and bring value to their businesses. So we've kind of used it as a play on words, but that was really important.
So in the position that I'm in, I feel that the work I do has a lot of purpose, but that's because of the position I'm in, right? I get to be here today and do this. Like, to me, this has purpose. But not everyone at my company gets to do things like this. So making them feel rewarded and like they have purpose at work, is something that is a retention tool. If they're happy, if they're happy there and they feel like their work is meaningful.
Correct. Yep.
It helps you with retention.
Yep. The other thing I'll say about the values side of it is that was a great first step for us, was just, defining that information of the core values and mission statement. But then even taking it a step further to find an anchor, right? What was the value anchor for us? Once again, it was something that Jason, brought to us is, we are accountable was one of our stated core values, but that became the anchor value for us as an organization. Accountability is something that, everybody talks about it, but what's interesting is employees, what I found is they want to be held accountable, but they also want to know they can hold you accountable all the way up to the top. And so, actually, Jason, you'll be proud of me. So we, as leaders, we've latched onto that, and so we've created these little trifold things to help us remind ourselves around what are the things that matter to us. A great book I highly recommend is called The Oz Principle. If you haven't heard it, it's an entire book around the concept of accountability, but it has some great ideas and great concepts that we've really been able to lean into as the anchor of our value system, that no matter what we do, top to bottom, whether you're the janitor or if you're the CEO, the accountability is key for us, and that's been a big driver for our success around trying to energize the workforce.
Amber, what are the key values that you're seeing that are defining today's workforce?
Well, he stole my thunder on one of them. So the purpose-driven work, I think, is a big one. But it's not only in their role, I think they just want to know that the company has purpose too, right? So we spend a lot of time talking about how we give back to the community. We have an MB Cares arm of Nation's Best as well. So we're, providing scholarships in the communities that they're working, so they see that happening. We give them, a day where they can go be in the community and volunteer in the community for whatever's on their heart as well. So I think that's big if we let them know that they can have purpose in any way that they want as well, and that we support that as an organization. So I think the purpose-driven is something I'm definitely seeing as well. And we've already talked about, I think, the work-life balance and the flexibility. I think that being able to kind of balance home life with work life is also something I'm continuing to see. And then I think they're wanting to just have personal and professional development as well. So they're wanting to see career development and training, but they're also wanting to have a sense of purpose for themselves and personal development. So, we try to provide that as well. So I think those are some of the big ones, in addition to diversity, I think is a big one as well.
The development is something that PLM really focuses on as well. We require all of our employees to be involved in continuing education, and I think it's important to kind of take the company out of it. It's easy to be like, well, I'm going to develop these people and then they're going to leave, and that may happen. But if you're working on your people strategies, hopefully that is reduced. And it just gives them the ability to be the best at what they're doing, to look up from their position and kind of see a bigger picture, and to have more context for the specific job that they're doing too.
Thanks. Dana, in what your company has undergone a lot of growth and a lot of change, and certainly helping guide the people through that has been an important role of yours. So keeping that in mind, in what ways have you seen companies successfully adapt their strategies to meet the evolving expectations of their employees? And what impact has this had on your overall business?
Yeah, we joke that our business model is change management. That's what we do. That's what we do. And through that, it's really interesting. The ability as an organization to adapt to change, I think is critical, especially in this day and age when things change, monthly, weekly, daily, it seems like. And I think you need to be okay with that. Sometimes it can be scary, but you got to be able to embrace it. I think it starts with having a good feedback loop from your employee base, right? We've already talked about that a few times, but I can't say it enough, right? And not just having a feedback loop, but encouraging people to use it, right? Don't shut them down. Don't tell them, that's a dumb idea. Like, you have to be able to encourage that feedback, because change just for change's sake doesn't do anybody any good, right? It's got to be purposeful and meaningful, and it starts with understanding where are we missing the mark, right? And then how do we need to change and adapt to that? An example for Tal, right? So, through our explosive growth, we went down this road of really trying to say, hey, we're going to try to centralize many components to our business model, right? That was sounded good on paper to try to leverage as much as we could from efficiency standpoint and so forth. But through that process, we actually ended up stripping away a bunch of empowerments from the branches, the branch leaders, and the employees at the ground level, and we got some pushback. We started to hear that, like, hey, you guys are sucking the fun out of this for us. We don't feel empowered to do, to produce the output that we want to produce and the way we want to do it that gives us the value and why we want to wake up and come to work in the morning. And so we had to take a hard look, in the mirror as a leadership team and say, hey, we're going down a path and it's not working. So how do we, what do we need to do to change, right? And it started with that feedback. And then we had to make some tough decisions to say, hey, we went down, we hear you, and we're gonna give you some empowerment back to do what you do best. And so that was, I think it was an eye-opener for us. But the ability to pivot, and our ability to take that hard look in the mirror and be okay with that change, I think was critical for us in maintaining a positive environment for our employees.
How did you get the feedback? I mean, how do you just say, okay, guys, give us feedback. I mean, is it coffee with the CEO? Is it just engagement surveys? Is it, hey, I have an open door policy, come see me and give me feedback?
All of the above, right? I don't think you can't just have one channel of like, a button on your website that says like, click here, give us feedback. It's having open door policies, it's having the surveys, it's having, we have annual meetings with our branch managers, right? And we ask them, hey, tell us what we're doing right, tell us what we're doing wrong. But it's everything we've talked about leading up to that, right? Building the trust, having them be able to have trust that you're gonna, put your money where your mouth is, walk the walk, so to speak. And then, they feel empowered to give you that information, that feedback. So it was all those things, but you hear it enough times, all of a sudden it becomes tangible. And we knew we needed to make a pivot on that. But I think change has to be good for both the business and the employees, right? It can't be one-sided, right? You mentioned COVID, and it's always interesting to me, I don't know what the right or wrong answer is per se, but how many companies out there are peeling back the remote work policies they put in place, right? The change, the employee expectation was, well, I could do my job from home, so I want to continue doing my job from home, right? That became the new expectation, and lots of businesses, especially in the tech industry, said, okay, we'll hold to that change, but they started seeing loss of productivity, they couldn't manage their workforce effectively, right? There's lots of, it's a slippery slope. And was it Apple or Google? I mean, they just revoked all their work from home stuff and said, hey, come back to the office. So the point is that they made some change that was a benefit to the employees, but it turned out it wasn't beneficial to the business. And I think, that's the fine line, the balance that has to happen when anytime you're gonna make a change.
That work from home conversation, I'm sure a lot of you are having it too, if you've had employees that worked from home and now you're trying to get them back in the office. That's another place where personality testing can really help you make those good decisions, especially hiring new people going forward, because they want flexibility, they want work from home. But not everyone is structured to be able to work from home. So one of those personality traits that you want to look for is called self-structure within Caliper. We use Caliper too. But if they don't have a pretty high level of self-structure, they're not going to be productive at home on their own. So you can offer those that type of flexibility when you're hiring in new positions, but you just need to make sure that you're giving that to the right people. Okay, let's talk about attracting top talent. We'll just kind of go there because it segues well. Amber, what specific strategies have you seen work best for companies looking to attract top talent? And how do these strategies align with principles of industrial and organizational psychology? Something her and I shared together. Are you IO Psych too?
No. Okay. So I think what I've seen work well is when your strategy appeals to both the logical and emotional needs of your candidate. So the I and the O, the industrial and the organizational part of IO Psych. So I think one big thing is when you're marketing for candidates is, again, it goes back to the brand and the culture, making sure you're super clear about that. So you have a super clear mission, vision, values, and you're making sure that all your candidates know what that means. So they know what they're getting into, because they want to come to an organization where their values match your values. And so making sure that you're super clear about that, you're making sure that you have that on all of your marketing material, you're talking about it in your interviews, all of those different things. So making sure you're super clear about all of that. I think meaningful benefits is super important as well, and I don't just mean the medical, dental, vision, because that's also important, and compensation's also important, but going back, we've talked about this several times, but the flexibility, the wellness, the career development, having a sense of purpose, all of those different things, and how you market that to a candidate, and how you have those conversations with the candidate, I think is super important as well. Going to the I side of IO, having a data-driven hiring process is super important. So are you having assessments? Are you doing structured interviews? How are you bringing those candidates into the organization and evaluating them? Are you just, is that how you're deciding who you're bringing in? Because I've seen that happen. And trust me, you're just going to keep having to hire. So are you finding the right person for the right roles, and how are you doing it? Having an inclusive culture, I think, is also a way to attract top talent. So how are you doing that? Are you trying to find, candidates in the right ways? Do you have an inclusive culture in general? Do you have a diverse culture? Because if you have a diverse culture and you're building that into your hiring process, you're naturally going to have a diverse organization, and it's just going to lead to better outcomes. And then also, I think organizations that do not leave out the culture fit part of their interview process, I think just have also better outcomes as well when it comes to hiring top talent, because I think that's a big part of it as well. So if you hire somebody and they come in and they're a super great fit in your structured interview or your assessment in general, if you just hire from your assessment, you're probably going to have problems. But if you hire and they're great for the job, but then they don't fit culturally, they're probably not going to stay, and they're not going to get along with anybody in your org. So I think that's something you definitely don't want to ignore.
Now, a culture fit, that's more discretionary, right? I mean, there's not really a measurement for, is this person a culture fit? It's more like a feel, right?
Yeah, I think you can build it into your interview questions, but yeah, I think it's more of a feel.
Anything anybody else wants to add on that topic before I move on? Okay. So let's talk about, we started to talk about measuring a little bit. So human resources, to me, has always been, more about the people. I mean, it still is about the people, but sometimes it was hard to measure. I think today, when we talk about industrial organizational psychology, we talk about human resources and metrics and figuring out how to build a better organization through leveraging your people, you have to measure that success. So how do we put measurements in place for measuring people? I mean, it's easy to do with accounting, right? It's easy to do with sales. How do we bring measurements to measure the success of our HR initiatives in our business today? Lindsey?
I think we talked a little bit about some of the internal stuff you can do. The continuous surveys are a big one, a great way to get feedback directly. There's also like the uptake rates that we talked about with the different programs that you have. If you are running different programs, what's the attendance like? Who's showing up where, basically. But there's also another component of this, and I think it's looking externally too. So the hope is, you work on your people, your own people, and that investment then turns into an investment in your business and in serving your customers too. So one of the things that we do is a Net Promoter Score survey, which is one question, how likely are you to recommend our company to an industry peer? And it's a measure of 0 to 10. I'm sure you've all received one from anything you've purchased, but you can do that on services too. And for us, we've learned so much from that, and it's been in unexpected ways too. So of course you have the people that respond back negatively, and it's a great opportunity to get in and recover in a situation. But more than that, what we've learned, we actually add an additional question, which is tell us more. Is there anything else you'd like to say? And that open feedback gives us the best information. It shows what kind of processes are maybe not working, not resonating outwards. And I think about those processes are also likely things that are not fitting with that people first culture too. So an opportunity there. But then you also learn what's going really well and where your company succeeds, and you start seeing names pop up. And for us, we measure all along our customer life cycle. So you get to pinpoint those moments where you can say, this person's doing a great job. How can we continue to develop them? How can we use them to help train others? It's just a great way to help recognize success within the organization.
And are the metrics that you guys track being reported up
Yes.
to whom?
So the Net Promoter Score is actually on our corporate plan. It's one of our non-financial measures as a company. We do quarterly updates to our whole organization on that. It's part of, whether or not we get a bonus at the end of the year. But more than that, we also have an actual committee. It's cross-department that is our NPS Analytics Committee. So how do we actually take that feedback and do something with it at a higher level too, not just that reactionary, but starting to think further out on it too.
How about you guys? What do you do for measuring your HR initiatives?
We do engagement surveys as well. We are actually getting ready to launch a pulse survey too. So rather than having a big long engagement survey once a year, kind of just a little bit of pulse survey just to ask about things that maybe we didn't score as well on the last time we had an engagement survey, just to see if what we've done to improve is working. So we do some of those as well.
What's the frequency at which you do the pulse surveys?
Well, this will be our first one,
Okay.
but hopefully once a quarter.
Cool.
What software do you use to do pulse surveys or even your engagement surveys?
So we do them on our own. So we have not got to a third party yet. We haven't got,
So
we're
like
not that
Google
sophisticated.
Forms or
We're using SurveyMonkey actually.
SurveyMonkey, okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've employed a third party, lots of local publications will do those type of, like the one we use is called Energage, but it's run through the local newspaper, I can't remember, but and then out of it, that's VC companies who have those voted top 100 places to work. Usually that's an output of those surveys, but it's been great having an outside source to help direct us through that process and also be able to give us benchmarking data to say, hey, you're good or you're off base.
And do you share
relative to your
those
peers.
results back with the employees?
We share the results with our leadership team and all the way down to our branch managers, like sort of the numbers side of it. But I think what gets shared back to the employees is the feedback part of it, not necessarily the metrics part of it, but hey, you told us this and we're listening and here's what we're going to do to address that. So, and I think another simple one to, is what's your turnover rate, right?
Yeah.
And then, or your retention rate, depending on how you measure that, right? And are you getting better with that, or is it getting worse? Or and use that as an easy barometer for, if your employees will tell you if you don't have a very good employee-centric workforce, because guess what, they'll go find somewhere else to work.
Are you guys doing exit interviews?
I would say not disciplined about it. I think we try to do it when we can, where we can, but not all of our managers are great at capturing that information. And even if they do them, I don't think we haven't developed a great way of capturing the information back other than just word of mouth or anecdotally or,
Amber, what do you do?
So we send out a survey to them electronically, but then we typically will follow up with them after they receive the survey. Usually they don't fill it out unless they have something really bad to say. So,
Which you always have to take with a grain of salt, right? Because they're going to unload on their way out the door. But
Yep.
maybe some of it is, something you need to hear. Okay, so let's just do a quick time check, ladies. So it's 2:30, so 10 more minutes. Okay, so I have one more final question for the group, and then we'll open it up to question and answer. All right, so playing chess versus checkers. Many companies are still playing checkers when it comes to their people strategy. What is the one or two things you want people to leave here learning or understanding better so that they can go back to work and start playing chess if they feel like they're playing checkers? Dana, we'll start with you.
That's great. I think
Not want me to start with you?
I think for me the takeaway is act on it, right? Is that it's easy to talk about, it's easy to listen, it's easy to read management books, it's easy to hear these things, but having your employees see you taking action and listening and back to this, you have to care and it has to come from a genuine place, right? Employees are pretty savvy. They know when you're not being genuine in talking about these things and talking about, oh yeah, I care about your well-being. They know, you guys know. They don't want to be pandered to, and so you have to be genuine about it, you have to be intentional about it, you have to be purposeful about it, and you have to work at it every single day, right? It's not a check the box, we got a good culture, right? It's, because every time we think we've done that, so we take our eye off it for, man, half a day, like some thread starts to unravel, and you have to work at it constantly. And I have a huge admiration when I come across companies who I just see that, man, they've figured it out. They're at the top of the mountain when it comes to figuring this culture thing out and this employee engagement thing out. And you start talking to them, they're like, man, we have to be working at this every single day and be intentional about it. So I think for me, that's a big takeaway, is that it's not a, check the box thing and move on. It is constant work all the time.
And it's not have a company barbecue and tell them how great they are, and then nothing ever again.
Honor the days where you can buy them pizza at lunch and everybody's happy.
Although I like pizza, so you can buy me pizza anytime. Amber?
I would say that don't wait until it's reactionary to then focus on engagement, right? So I think along the lines what you just said, make sure that you can start and keep on it all the time. Because once you wait until retention and engagement's a problem, it's really hard to recover. So, start now, and then just when it's not a problem, and continue to work on it.
And kind of going off of both of your comments too, I don't think it's daunting to say I need to come up with a strategy and implement it, but you don't have to do it all at once, and you shouldn't. You can start small, and I think you can start with just getting curious about the people in your organization, and I think that curiosity will lead you down the right path here.
And if you're not sure where to start, there's a lot of consultants that you can bring in that will help you make those first steps and help you put together a plan that you can go and fly with. And then they kind of step out of the way. So you don't have to go at it alone. And if you're looking for a consultant, look for an industrial organizational psychologist, because they're the ones that are going to help you put that together. For me, it is just kind of a combination of what all of you guys said. Understand that this is important if you want to play chess. Figuring out your people and building a better organization by leveraging. It's not just HR anymore like it used to be. So the organization now that governs that is called SHRM. It's the Society of Human Resource
Management.
Is it society or is it
Society.
Strategic Human Resource Management?
It's society.
So Society of Human Resource Management. But when we talk about SHRM, it's sometimes used as strategic. So human resources today is a strategic initiative. It's not just, the person in the office who's hiring and firing and making sure you did your annual reviews. It's really a strategic initiative for your company. So start to absorb that. And when you feel that this is really something I need to pay more attention to in your company, you start to make those first steps. So thank you guys so much.
Of course.
Thank you.
We're gonna open it to question and answers. I don't know who's running around with a mic or how we'll handle that or not. But if you have a question, maybe we'll just stand up and ask them. Maybe we don't need a mic.
Lindsey, sorry,
Yeah.
I don't need a mic. Lindsey, you brought up the non-financial measurables. Are you able to share what some of those things look like?
Yeah, so we have a very long list of non-financial measures, and they're usually project related or just corporate initiative related. I'm going to call on Tricia and see if she wants to help me out here with some of the other ones.
If you are correct, it is more the projects that we work on. I'm stuck with the financial perspective. This is just incredibly long, and we have a list equally as long for all the other objectives.
Right.
Within the department that I manage and that I work in, we've got things that are non-financial, such as how many appointments they need to set each day, how many reports they're completing, the administrative that they're completing. There's just a whole myriad of things that are expected for each one of our people that's beyond that financial growth and that overall, yeah, we hit the goal.
We do have some in education too. We talked about how it's required, so that is a measure that we have, and we are very passionate about that too. So, yeah.
And with that passion, it's a matter of everybody deciding what they want to do. So it's not a leader standing over them saying, you must get this designation or you must go to school for this. They decide what's best for them based on what they're doing, and then they pursue a further education. And they usually come out of it with some type of a designation, which again, Lindsey mentioned earlier, you're always in jeopardy of losing people by developing them to that point. But if you don't make people feel like they're valid and they're relevant, you're in worse trouble because nobody's going to want to join you if the word on the street is you don't care about your people. And so when we ask our people to do this, we're paying for all of it, and we're giving them the opportunity to study for a couple of hours each day before that test comes about.
Is there anyone in the audience who, as we were talking, thought, oh, we did something really great at our company that you might want to share that's in this realm?
Come on, don't be scared.
How many of you are saying to yourself, oh God, we got a lot of work to do? By show of hands.
We still have a lot of work to do.
Yeah. Yep. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Always.
right, exactly, yes. Yes.
So to Dana's point, we think that our employees feel or understand actually everything that we're communicating. And something that we started about 8 months ago was having the employees sit down with senior leadership without the management team there and just have conversations.
Yeah.
And it is completely changed the way that our employees feel about why they come to work, what their jobs are, how important or empowered they feel to make a difference. And it's night and day. And it takes very little effort. All it takes is scheduling an hour with a department and sitting down with them.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that. What's interesting about our trajectory, and I'm sure you guys probably have suffered the same thing, is early on when we were 3 yards or 7 yards or 8 yards in a more compact geography, it was easier for our top leadership to be more present in the locations and to spark those conversations, right? Most employees aren't going to just email the CEO or one of the vice presidents at random. Some of them do. But when you're just talking to them face to face and they see, hey, you're a human being and you're asking probing questions to show you genuinely care about what's going on, that is hugely impactful. And as we grew, that became harder for us to do, and it became easier for us as the senior leaderships to sort of manage behind the desk, from a faraway, place. And as we sprawled across 4 states, some of the feedback we got, like I kept hearing, like, man, we never see you anymore. And it took a while for that to click with me of oh, they're asking for me to come out there because they want to share what's going on in a more informal manner, just face to face, just talking. And so we've made more of a commitment, especially this year, and as we look into next year, of Jason and myself and Vernon and all of our senior executives, we have to be out in the branches and visiting more and more. In fact, that was one of the feedbacks we got from our Interengage survey was hey, we want to see you guys more. And so we've said, all right, let's do it. Let's walk the walk. And so we've made a renewed commitment of being back out there because precisely those conversations are where some of the most meaningful feedback comes from. And we've tried to force ourselves into making feedback not a bad word, right? So many employees shy away from constructive criticism or feedback. And so we've taught ourselves, at the end of every conversation, I'll say, hey, what feedback do you have for me? And all of a sudden it removes all this cloud of intimidation around it and say, hey, what feedback do you have for me? And we say that all the time. It actually sounds really silly sometimes because it's hard to fit that into a conversation organically sometimes. But we force ourselves to do it because it's important, it's critical for what we do.
I think there's a book called Management by Walking Around. And it's just, get out of your office and be present with your people so that they communicate with you. Thank you for your question.
I just have one thing I wanted to ask.
Yes.
With regard to what Dana just said,
Something that we do at our company that kind of adds to what you just said, Dana, is every single one of our managers and supervisors, AVPs, everybody that manages people must find the time within their schedule to meet with them. And it's difficult if you have too many people on your team to meet with them weekly. But you determine based on their level of expertise, based on their personality, based on who they are, how often you're going to meet with them. Is it going to be weekly? Is it going to be bi-weekly? Is it going to be monthly? And you make it a point to set that time, and you don't let anything interfere with that time. And then you can easily say, what have you got for me? This is what I have for you. Based on this initiative, where are we? Where are you? What do you need? What are you hearing?
Right.
And it speaks volumes. I don't miss appointments with my people unless I wind up scheduled at something like this where I simply can't break away to talk to them. And they appreciate that, and they tell me that time and time again.
The consistency is great too, because you start to see those conversations and relationships develop and evolve over time too. So you earn that trust both ways, and you start to understand like what makes that person tick. So we talked about personality assessments, but that's a great way just to do it on the fly and learn.
Any other questions before we wrap up? Yes. Sunny? Sunny.
Yeah, hang on.
Yeah, so I guess I'm just curious, at least between a couple of you up there, right, there have been a lot of acquisitions in the last 4 years. And it kind of goes off of a conversation that Emily and I were having before this, but like when you walk into a new location, what's your strategy? What's your plan of attack for making sure that team gets onboarded to this pro feedback culture as quickly as possible? Like, do you have like a first 90 days, first 180 game plan? And could you share that a little bit?
You want to talk about it? Yeah.
All means, let you lead off.
Well, so for us, our regional vice presidents are key in that. They are spending time in their stores that are getting onboarded the most. And so for the culture that we're trying to create, we also don't want to lose the culture that they have either. So it's really more about blending the cultures together. So that's kind of the hardest part of the acquisition process, right? So how do we not lose the culture that they have, because we don't want to just come in and say, nope, no more of that. Now you're onboarding the nation's best culture. But it's really, I think, having that RVP go in and try to understand what is that culture and what does it look like. And now here's nation's best culture, and how do we try to come to a happy medium and onboard together with each other. And so I think it's really them spending time together and trying to understand how to do that. We have a lot of people that go in before acquisition as well, so they kind of get a lot of those details before. And I think they spend a lot of time together where a lot of the individuals onboarding already understand who we are as an organization. And so I think that really helps as well, as they kind of understand who Nation's Best is before we even really set foot as their new owners.
Yeah, for us, it's kind of funny. Our former CEO was famous for walking into a new acquisition and saying, "Don't worry, nothing's going to change."
Oh, I've heard that 100
And I had to
times.
kick him in the shins about 17 times, because I was the guy that had to come in behind him and then tell them, "Sorry guys, some things are going to change."
I feel your pain so much right
and
now.
and Dave did it, with good intention, right? Because he felt like that's what they wanted to hear, right? When an acquisition happens, it's scary, it's unknown, you don't know, everybody has this like perception of this, corporate piracy, and it's a scary thing. So you want to try to provide immediate comfort and stability. So change is scary. So if you can say, "Hey, don't worry about it, we're not going to change anything," you're trying to calm them. But the problem is that's not the reality of it. No matter how much we try to keep the business model the same,
Things change.
We're going to change your payroll, your medical benefits, where you can go to the doctor. We're going to change your computer system. We're going to change your SKU for a 2x4. We're going to upend your entire world. Our entire business model is who moved my cheese. Like, that's literally it. And so what I found is, I can't remember where I read this, but it's stuck with me, right? Failure exists in the gap between expectations and execution, right? What we were doing was we were setting a terrible expectation out of the gate. So we changed a couple years ago. It went from, "Hey guys, things are going to change," and some of it's going to suck, but we're here side by side with you as a partner. We're going to get through this together. But we changed the expectation that, like, hey, it is scary. Like, and there's going to be some questions you're going to ask. We're not going to have the answers on day one, but stick with us, and we'll be here with you as a partner. So I think that was key for us in changing the way, our tip of the spear model with acquisitions was setting right expectations out of the gate, even if we thought it might be a little bit painful to hear some of that. People value that honesty up front. And the other thing, like I said, having something like a written mission statement, written core values, has been hugely impactful for us to be able to walk in and say, here's what it means to be part of the Tal family of businesses, right? And here's how your culture aligns with that and fits with that already, right? And so being able to have that talking point and have that language to be able to lead in with has been hugely powerful for us as well. So, sorry, you got the lights right above you. So.
Thank you, Sunny. That was a great question. All right, well, I'm going to wrap it up because I'm watching the clock and we're just a couple minutes over, but we'd love to talk to any of you guys, more about this if you want. I do want to take 1 second and thank Rick and Thea and Dina and Awilda for putting this panel together and for letting us be a small part of your conference. We're grateful to be up here. And I also have a little gift for the panelists for all of the extra time that we took out of your workday planning for the panel. It didn't show up on time, but I bought chess sets for all of you guys that have your names engraved in them to always remember to play chess.
Thank you very much.
Don't play checkers, so thank you.
Thank you so much.